What's up, guys? It's Parallax Abstraction, and this is PXA Peeks at Null Vector. This comes to us from a small team known as Optical Override, and, well, it got my attention when I came across it the other day because, well, it's very 80s slash synthwave looking and is a twin-stick shooter done in a kind of arcadey format. Those are all good talking points for me, I figured, so I decided to give this guy a go. And, well, it's pretty interesting, actually. It's fairly basic at its core, but has some interesting replayability to it that I figured I would show you guys here. So, just so you know, I am playing with a controller here. There's one little weird thing here, which is the game doesn't give you controller prompts unless you start it with your controller turned on or plugged in. It does play fine with the keyboard as well, though I like the little bit of extra precision that I get with an analog stick, so that's what we're doing here. So we're gonna fire this up here, and I'll go a little bit more into detail about what it offers once we get going here. So it does offer co-op, local only. I've not tried that out. I imagine this would be fun with a second player, especially with some extra difficulty modifiers turned on, which I'll show you guys about here. And then once again, there's your basic stuff here. We'll go into this stuff once we get going. So there are 6 levels plus a few surprises. Let me just put it that way. The game has no story to speak of. This is just kind of a cool setting that you have here. And your basic goal is that you will go through these levels, which are randomly generated, and you'll do different challenge rooms to try to build up score, get power-ups, and eventually get yourself to the end to take on sort of the big boss here. So you go from room to room, and each room is designated in a different way. So you might have seen there that we had rooms with numbers on them. Well, that is a difficulty rating, basically. A room, how hard the combat sequence should be or how hard the game thinks it will be. There are also challenge rooms where you have to complete a specific objective. There's also boss rooms. There are multiple bosses in this game. And there's also what are called treasure rooms, which are rooms where you can pick up power-ups for yourself. So you saw that I picked one up there, which is that mortar bot. You see it in the upper right there. You can have up to 3 different power-ups at once that are equipped. Depending on the little stations that you will find, you saw the sort of little white satellite station in a previous area there. Yeah, that allows you to pick up sometimes additional upgrades or upgrade the ones you have, or do some other interesting things. So you can carry 3 different upgrades at once. Some of them are bots, some of them are things that, so there's a fire rate one that I picked up there. And we've completed this. Once you complete a certain number of rooms, you don't have to necessarily finish every room on every level, but once you finish a certain amount, the exit opens, and on you go to the next section. So you see here when we start, I can go to a treasure room, a challenge room, or a level 1 combat room. So let's go to the treasure room first here. So you see it shows what the different options are here. What you can do with every power-up that you find is you can either pick it up and equip it, or if you don't have the means to equip something, you can destroy it, which has a chance of turning it into either more hit points or credits. And credits are the things that you use to buy different powers and upgrades at those little corner stations that I told you about. So the upgrade mechanics in this are kind of interesting. So you have the option to do this. This is one thing that's cool. So I said you can only carry 3 things at once, right? You can also upgrade those things depending on the station, and you can also do this, which is you can permanently weld one part to your ship, which gives you room for a new part, which gives you the ability to carry a 4th, 5th, 6th ability, depending on how many times you do that. But also the thing that is permanently welded can no longer be upgraded. So if you choose to do that, if you choose to permanently weld an option, like for example, let's do the mortar bot. Okay, the mortar bot is now permanent and is no longer taking up a slot, but I can't upgrade him anymore. So a little interesting risk reward there. Some things you may not care about upgrading. Other things, you know, you might want to upgrade before you do that, and you may choose to destroy other things rather than sacrifice that upgrade ability. Interesting little power dynamic there. I kind of like that. So this is a challenge room where, as you said, it was survive 12 enemies. There's like a capture, there's like a hold the zone kind of mode. There's a collect X number of these little power-ups kind of modes that fluctuate around the map, things like that. Kind of neat. You can do different, a little bit of a mix-up there. And in certain areas, obviously this is a score attack game as well, so sometimes when you kill certain enemies, extra power-ups will drop, as will a ×2 fire rate, which those are limited, but I believe they do stack, so you can sometimes get multiple ones and have double fire. You can only have double fire, there is no greater multiplier beyond that. And your main goals of this game are not only to get to the end, but also to top out on the leaderboards, get the highest score possible. Real bummer omission in this game is there is no online leaderboards. Now, listen, I understand I ain't no dev or nothing here, but like, doesn't Steamworks give you the ability to have leaderboards pretty much at just a plug and play level? I'm sure it's not that simple. In fact, I'm almost positive it's not that simple, but it really bums me out when I see a score attack focused game like this that doesn't have online leaderboards in it. Like, local leaderboards are all well and good, but a lot of people, frankly, like myself, don't really have anyone to play against on their local computer. You know, it's kind of me against myself. And being able to compete against other people online would be really cool. I don't know, maybe Steamworks is harder to integrate for that stuff than I would have thought, or maybe it's, maybe it's hard, maybe it's harder to do than I think, or maybe they're concerned about people using cheat engine to game it and that being difficult, so here's a collection thing. I don't know, but it's just, in a score attack heavy game like this, it just feels to me like online leaderboards really should be a key focus. And it's kind of a bummer that we don't have that. So there we go. We cleaned that out. It takes out all the enemies. So you see you can pick up crystals, hit points, and also the occasional blue power-up, which increases your max hit points, which is really nice. And you can see in the upper left there, it says my hit points are 4 or 5 plus 1. That plus 1 is the shield, and the shield regenerates after every encounter. So if I take a hit, I lose it, but if I complete this arena, then it opens up again, and away we go. So you may be looking at me playing this while I'm doing commentary and going, geez, you're kind of chewing through this thing, ain't ya? Yeah, so on the default settings, which is pretty much what you're forced to play with the first time you play this game, it is not hard. I literally beat it in 20 minutes. And I was like, ooh, okay. But the thing is, where the replayability comes into this is obviously not only being able to potentially play it in co-op with people, but... Okay, there we go. So we took him out. So you see those little red things that were popping down, those red zones? Yeah, that's kind of where a barrage of artillery comes down, so you don't want to sit in those. And those will get trickier in later levels as well. So, yeah, all right, let's do that. So you see, I bought a max HP. You can also, if you want to spend a credit, you can re-roll on what the slot machine could give you, which is kind of a cool thing. I'm just going to skip that treasure room and move on here. So... the thing that is that where the replayability comes in with this game is it has a number of what they call modifiers, which are basically mutators. They're rule variants. So you can enable those and make the game purposely more difficult for yourself. And by beating the game with certain modifiers turned on, you unlock other modifiers, and then when you unlock 5 in total, you unlock what is called Hell Mode, which I do not have unlocked yet. I don't know what that is, but it sounds like it's super challenging. I'm gonna wager that's probably the case. So yeah, so what you can do is, I currently have the one modifier enabled that I unlocked for beating the game once, which actually speeds up the enemy fire, and I have gotten to near the end of the game with that turned on. I have not yet beat it. The enemy fire in the later levels, when it's up high, gets real nasty real fast, actually. So here's an interesting one where you can convert HP to crystals and back again. I think I'm going to do that and get myself a little boost there. So, all right, let's go this way. And yeah, so you can do that, and there are modifiers that change a lot of other things. Once we complete this, I'll go back to the main menu and show them to you. It's kind of interesting. And that's sort of where the replayability comes in. Now, it's definitely not bad, and there is a pretty good variance of options there. But at the same time, while I have been enjoying this, and it's only $5, you know, it's pretty inexpensive, and it's a good little time waster. You know, last year I played a game on this channel called Monolith, which was a roguelite game, twin stick shooter. It played in some ways like this. And Monolith was one of my favorite indie games last year. I have actually not finished it yet, though I've come real close a few times. And that game just, I absolutely adore. Between the level designs, the weird weapons, the weird enemies, the kind of odd little story it has, and the fact that it is a roguelite, so you are making a little bit of, you know, permanent progression each time you play it. I just really love that game all around. And it's only a couple bucks more than this. And it kind of feels to me like it offers a little bit more than this one does. That's not to say this is bad. I've actually been enjoying this a fair bit, frankly. And it's a $5 game, which, you know, is fairly inexpensive, and this is fairly basic visually. It will run on basically anything. So again, you know, I like to talk a lot about games that are good to play on like a low-end laptop or a work computer on your lunch break, something like that. And this could definitely be that. And it doesn't require a large time investment to have a good time. And as you can see there, you have little additional things like if you can clear an arena without taking any damage, you get some extra points, things like that. You can min-max your score. And score is critical later on for unlocking certain modifiers and things like that. And yeah, for good sort of basic arcade fun, this is pretty solid. But I don't know. If I had to choose between this and Monolith, I have to say I would definitely take Monolith hands down. And especially since it's only a couple dollars more. That said, Monolith is a fair bit harder and requires more investment of time to do a run, and in particular to get really good and successful at it, that this one definitely does not. I'd say this is a little bit more casual friendly, definitely friendlier to people who are a little bit more limited on time. It does have kind of a cool aesthetic. I mean, the fact that it was a twin-stick shooter and it has this sort of Tron neon aesthetic is kind of what drove me to it. I love anything that has this look to it. I think they did a pretty good job with that. The graphics in this are most certainly simple, but I think they do the job well. I think they look nice, and, you know, I really like the popping contrasting colors. The enemy designs are kind of interesting and a little bit different. I kind of like that. It does have sort of a nice little, sort of a hybrid of synthwave and chiptune-y soundtrack. I've heard better. You know, this is a game I'm not going to rush out and buy the soundtrack for. It's not really blowing my mind, to be honest with you. So there's another power-up that reveals any hidden machines on the level, which can be helpful in certain cases if you want. Again, especially if you're playing with higher modifiers, you're probably not going to want to clear out every level, and you're probably going to want to know the rooms that have the power items in them so that you can focus on that if you want to min-max. Because at this point, even with this one modifier that I have, it's pretty much still worth it to go through every room and try to clear everything out, especially to get your maximum score. But on higher difficulties with higher multipliers, you're gonna definitely have to prioritize and triage what rooms you choose to go through, and that power-up can be helpful for that. But you're gonna see here, I mean, visually it's basic but nice. The soundtrack, it's not my favorite thing in the world. It's okay. And you see as well, there isn't a lot of variance. There's a couple of different challenge modes. The majority of the combat arenas are just, here's multiple waves of enemies, and the waves get increasingly larger on later levels, which makes it more complicated. Again, there's nothing super revolutionary in this in terms of what it offers from a gameplay perspective. Everything in here, you've probably played something like it before, but at the same time, I have been enjoying this. You know, this game is only $5, and if I hadn't gotten press code for it and I tripped over it, I probably would have given it a go, and I'd probably be quite happy, to be honest with you. You know, a game doesn't have to be, as much as I like Monolith for the interesting depth it has, a game doesn't always have to be crazy deep to be enjoyable and entertaining. And I feel like Null Vector is a little bit more focused on just being a quick, fun arcade experience as opposed to a, you know, deeper roguelite thing that's going to require a fair amount of time investment. This is something you can play for a little bit here and there, and, you know, spend a little bit of time with, and, you know, just have some fun and try to do some score attack stuff and sort of go from there, you know. Again, it really is a shame that there's no online leaderboards in a game that is so focused around score attack. So you can see here the little artillery enemies now exist that can do that. You got to be very careful about that. Yeah, I really think online leaderboards is a major negative against this, because this is a game that is very much focused on maximizing your score and just being able to play against yourself when online leaderboards are readily available on Steam. That's kind of a bummer. Could be patched in. I'd love to see that, frankly. But I just don't think it's, I think that is a fairly unfortunate omission to have in this, but, yeah, in terms of its basic mechanics and its basic gameplay design, it's, you know, it's done pretty well, for me. And you know, we're pretty close to the end here, but of this run, but you know what, I'm gonna bail out here so that I can show you guys the modifiers. One thing I will say that's weird is that this game does have sound options. You can't adjust these from the main menu, you have to do it in game, which is kind of strange. I don't know why that is. You can also see here, it's kind of interesting, it'll give you statistics on your weapon that you're playing with at the current time, which is kind of handy as well. So yeah, here's all the modifiers. There's 3 pages of these things. So high velocity is the one that I've unlocked. As you can see, you get 20% bonus score when it's enabled, but enemies are faster. There's glass cannon, and you see, the thing is, it doesn't describe any of these to you until you unlock them. It just gives you the prerequisite conditions. So kill the boss with high velocity enabled, so beat the game with high velocity enabled. Then it's kill the boss with the one above it enabled, kill the boss with those 2 enabled, etc., etc. Kill the boss with high velocity, glass cannon 1, and iron boss. As you can see, it kind of stacks up here. Kill the boss with 20,000. That one's not as easy as it sounds. 25,000, definitely not as easier. You know, everything on page 1. A lot of these are prerequisites for each other, right? So you're gonna have to beat this game many times over in order to unlock all of these. And when you turn all these on, this can get brutal, I would imagine. But you get a score bonus for each one, and that is your incentive, because by doing that, obviously, you place higher on the leaderboards, and that is ultimately what you want to do. Again, no online leaderboards when you can have so many different things to improve your score. It's just, oh, it's such a unfortunate omission. And you can see here, when you look at it, it will actually tell you what modifiers you were using at a given time, so you can actually see what you are up against and what you're stacking up with to do that. And then again, unlock 5 modifiers and you unlock the hell mode, which could be something very interesting indeed. So yeah, you basically seen the core of this. There is a fair amount of replayability here for a $5 package. You know, if you want to put the time in, I'm sure you could have a very fun, very challenging time indeed with it. I have enjoyed it, but again, if my choices for interesting indie-style twin-stick shooters were this or Monolith, I would still take Monolith hands down. So here's one where you get a chance to be shocked and lose health or get a free thing. And I got the free thing, which is always nice. Yeah, I would take Monolith hands down over this, but that's also me, and I'm also, you know, kind of a fan of roguelites, and I just sort of am more interested in what it did. And given that it's only a couple of dollars more, I feel it's a bit better value. But I've had fun with this. I'm going to keep it installed, and I'll be still playing it from time to time for sure. Especially if you've got a co-op partner to play with who's into this kind of thing. I think this would be pretty good fun. And honestly, even if you only buy it and beat it a couple times, it's $5. You know, you're not out very much, frankly, and it you can still get a decent amount of fun for $5. And if you want to go all the way with this thing and really try to get all the modifiers and beat it on its hardest difficulty, you could get a lot for your $5 out of this, frankly. So yeah, that is Null Vector. It is developed by a person whose name I can't remember right now. Optical Override. I'm sorry about that. Yes, it is on the PC. It is available on Steam right now for $5 US. Yeah, it's good twin stick fun. I've played better, but I've certainly played a lot worse. And I think for $5, it could be good fun if you're into this sort of thing. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked what you saw here, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. That does help me out a great deal. I also do live streams over on Mixer at mixer.com/pxabstraction, and don't forget to follow @pxabstraction on Twitter to find out about new stuff first.